Hello, I'm Tobey Nelson, certified professional horticulturist. On behalf of Venture Out Nursery, we're coming to you from my home orchard on this bright summer day. It happens to be the end of September, but here today we're talking about summer pruning, and you can start this summer pruning in your fruit orchards usually towards the middle end of August all the way into the middle of September-ish in our Pacific Northwest climate. So first I want to talk to you a few things about tools and terminology. So for summer pruning, you might need a nice pair of bypass loppers, which means the blade is curved, and so the tissue is nicely sliced instead of smashed. But mostly you'll just need a pair of pruners, hand pruners. And you might need an orchard ladder, which is a three-legged creation that's the most safe. So that's the tools. And then terminology. I'm going to talk about making a heading cut. And a heading cut means that you just come in on the branch at any point along the branch and you cut. So that's a heading cut versus a thinning cut, which is where you follow the branch all the way down to the point of origin and cut it at the point of origin. Those are heading versus thinning. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about the wood. So on a fruit tree, well, probably any flowering tree, we have juvenile growth, which is found at the end of the branch. And as you go down, you can usually find a point right about in here, and I'll strip these leaves off so you can most easily see it, where this little wrinkly bit is where this bud last year grew long into this shoot, and then the buds that were here last year have started to form a little bit of a fruit spur. And it's important to understand your wood when you're pruning a fruit tree, because what we are trying to do with summer pruning, we have four basic objectives. We want to encourage the formation of fruiting wood. We want to limit the vigor of our trees. We want to control the size of them, usually the spread and the height. And we want to help manage the penetration of sunlight throughout the canopy. So the difference between summer pruning and winter pruning would be that winter pruning is when you do more of your structural establishment. So you're going to work more with bigger cuts. For winter pruning, you definitely want a saw and loppers. Winter pruning encourages vigor in the tree. So when we make a cut in winter, in the spring, the growth is going to shoot out in all directions and your tree might begin to look a bit like a hairball. In summer, the plant has used up its resources, it's stored some of its resources, it's winding down, and so when we prune in summer, we limit the growth response. We do not elicit the growth response. So summer is a good time to manage the foliage load and the wood load on your plants. So there's that. So these are a few concepts that we're going to outline. So that's why it's important to understand juvenile growth, which usually starts in the spring from the tip and goes out, versus the more mature wood. What we're trying to form is the formation of fruit spurs. So here, this shoot came out long, and these are the fruiting spurs, which are also the flower buds. So in the spring, from this stubby spur looking wood, we will have flowers, and that's where the fruit is set. So these are what you're trying to make. And when you're pruning, if you see these, stubby spur looking plants, you want to ask yourself twice if you should be cutting those off, because in general, we want to make these happen. So we're going to talk more about that soon. So I'm up high on my orchard ladder because this is the best example of another term I want to share with you. And this concept is the idea of laterals. So in summer pruning, we are looking to prune back the laterals. What the heck does that mean? So a lateral is the stem that comes off of a main branch. So this branch is coming, it's going, it's got an ending, and then there's all of these little hairy things that are coming off of it. So if we recall the shoot we just looked at, you can't see it from down there, but this is all vegetative growth. And so what we're going to do is we are going to maintain the lateral, but we are going to head back some of the shoots that are on it. And in this case, you can tell because I'm up high on the ladder, my primary goal is height management. And that is what I am pruning for presently. So I've headed back laterals to control the height of the tree, and we'll talk more in a second when I'm back on the ground. Now we're back on the ground to talk more about the hows and whys of pruning laterals. So this is my Liberty or Enterprise tree, I can't remember which, but it's a very late fruiting plant. So it's possible that you will still have fruit on your tree when you're doing your summer pruning, and that is okay. I will also just get this out of the way. This is called a fruit sock, and it's basically like a little nylon footie that you might find at your local shoe department. And you can slip these over the fruit when they're young, and it prevents insects from getting in here and bothering the fruit. I clearly didn't use it on every piece because I ran out of time and footies. So anyway, I thought I'd get that out of the way. So back to summer pruning. So here you can see an example of, this is the lateral branch, right? So this tree here, this is the branch. And last year, I made a heading cut here. I made a heading cut here. It's probably a little tricky to see, but I made one here. And it's possible to see what that encouraged on the plant. So we got the creation of fruiting spurs here, and lo and behold, we got apples. One reason that we want to head back those laterals is by keeping the fruit load close to the thicker lateral branch, we don't get as much breakage. So imagine if I let this shoot keep growing and fruit buds happened out here, it would get so heavy with fruit it would break. So in general, we want to keep that weight of the fruit focused close to the strength of the main branches. And that's one great thing about the heading back the laterals. It also helps to thicken them up, so it makes the stem that they're on thicker and stronger when we head them back. Okay, so then how much do we head back? What should we cut? What should we leave? All of that. So on a shoot like this, so with this branch, we've got new growth here, we have new growth here, we have new growth back here and up here, and all of that deserves a little bit of attention. So I'm gonna start with this one that's the longest, because this tree is wide enough for where I want it to be in the orchard. And again, I don't want fruit weight out here. So I am gonna strip a few leaves so you can more easily see what I'm doing. So I'm going to come in and I'm gonna look at where this branch originated, and I'm gonna count out 1, 2, 3 nodes, and I'm gonna make my heading cut. There it is. Now let's talk about a well-made heading cut. A well-made heading cut is one that is closer to the node versus farther. So for instance, you wouldn't make your cut way up here and leave this long stub. The tree cannot heal that stub and disease can enter and you have problems. A better heading cut is when you are closer to the node. So a cut like this is much better. It allows the plant to have less stub to heal over. And that's a better heading cut than doing something like this and leaving this whole length. The other sort of rationale behind that 3 buds is that it gives a chance for a fruiting spur to develop on any of those 3 buds. And that's usually enough for that amount of stem. You wouldn't want more than 1 piece of fruit on that much branch. It would just be too crowded. The fruit wouldn't ripen to quality. So on something that long, that's what we're going to do. Now, this little tiny shoot, this is probably not something that you need to bother with. It's not a very vigorous shoot. It's not very long. So this is good enough. We can leave this one. When we get in here, we have multiple shoots that have broken. And this is too much. So can you see they're like 2 little peace sign bunny ears right in here. This is too much. We don't need all this much fruit in here. So we can do a couple of things. We can come in here, so we see where our cut was last year, and then the shoot expanded. So I've got 1, 2, and then actually I did a little summer pruning up here on this node. So we can just nip this friend down. But what I'm also going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and thin this branch in the back. So are you able to see that? Because we don't need to have that much fruit all right up in here. So by controlling the location of the fruiting spurs and how many you have, you can help control the amount of fruit set you have and the quality of the fruit. The last bit of summer pruning that you might want to do is work that helps get some light to the fruit to help it ripen. Now, I have done a lot of that work on this tree a little bit earlier when the fruit was younger. But it could include things like continuing to make your heading cuts. And you can see as I make those cuts, it just automatically brings more light. You can even get as particular as a few leaves removed can help. I don't recommend doing that when we are projected to have really strong heat waves. That can be too much. You can also do things like, so let's take this branch, has a long leader. It doesn't probably need that much. So I'm going to cut this off, and I'm going to cut here, and already we've got more light coming to these fruit down below. So that is work that you can do in the summer also to help with getting light on your fruit to help it ripen. I hope all these things help you have an abundance of high quality fruit. Thanks so much for watching.